Hi, my name's John Howes, and this is Strokes version 3.10. In the last video I talked about how, with the addition of some samplers, Strokes turned from a MIDI sequencer into a fully self-contained instrument. Well, this update takes that a step further with the introduction of 16 new synth engines. These synth engines were ported from Mutable Instruments Plaits, which is an insanely popular Europe module designed by Emily Gillet. She's generously shared all the code under MIT open source license. And what this means in Strokes is previously where we had samplers, we now have samplers and the option of using one of these 16 fully featured synthesizers. These 16 synthesizers offer a wide range of sound design possibilities, and they respond really, really well to modulation. There's some information about different voices on screen right now. They can be broken down into like 8 harmonic voices, so like analog, wave shape, FM. These are for doing kind of like melodic stuff. The next 8 are kind of less tonal, more for doing like noisy, percussive, weirder stuff. So let's set up a voice and take a listen. I'm going to go over to the split view here. I'll put in a couple of notes into this first channel, and I'll select the analog voice. Now when I hit play, we should start to hear this. Or better plug it in. Okay, so we've got the analog voice playing here, and you see when I selected that voice there, we get these 4 parameters that appear below. Here it's detune, square, saw, and blend. The first 3 parameters are going to be unique per synth voice. If I flip over to the next one, you see we now have wave, fold, and symmetry. The 4th parameter, blend, that is, so on the Plaits there's 2 outputs, there's an aux and a main output, and blend basically is a crossfader between those 2. So as I start to move these, you'll start to hear the sound change. Just like the sampler, we have an attack and decay envelope, a multi-mode filter, and a delay as well. Now where things get interesting, if we flip over to this B page, you'll see at the top we have a keyboard, and this is basically a pitch quantizer. So you can see right now we're playing C1. Beneath that, this is pitch modulation control. I'll start to increase that. Nothing's going to happen just yet. But if I flip over to the matrix sequencer and start to punch in some notes, you'll see that we're now sequencing a melody. So that happens because, if you see on this page here, matrix 1 is connected to the pitch, and the amount is 2. So the amount here refers to the number of octaves that sequence can cover. So here we can cover 2 octaves. If I bring that up, it's now 4 octaves. Now you hear it's quite inharmonic at the minute, so what we can do is drag my finger across here and turn off all the notes except for C, and then I can individually bring notes in and out. So this sequence is playing on matrix channel 1 on the first rhythm channel. So if I increase the strokes here, so the rhythm sequencer and the matrix sequencer are both really interlinked. You see as I turn this backwards, the sequence in the bottom left starts playing backwards as well. Same happens palindromically. It's always got to follow the movement of that grid sequencer. We've got this little riff going here, so let's look at different ways that we can alter the pitch while it's playing. So we've got an octave up or down here. And then we can transpose that sequence using the note banks here. So we're on note bank 1 and we're playing note C1. If I go over to the next note bank and put it up 2 octaves, I can now switch between those 2 settings there. And this lets you transpose sequences while they're playing. You don't necessarily have to put in octaves, you can put in any value. Crucially, the last step of all of this pitch modulation is the quantizer, so you never really have to worry about hitting wrong notes. So let's take a look at how we modulate the sound parameters. So I'm going to get another sequence going on matrix channel 2. To do that, I'll just put in some notes here. So I put in 8 triggers onto channel 2 and selected channel 2 on the matrix sequencer, and you can see it stepping through these values here. Now on this voice modulation section here, I can assign that matrix sequence to any of the sound parameters. You see by default, matrix 2 is connected to fold. So let's turn up the modulation here and take a listen. Likewise, I can go to channel 3, punch in some notes here, and that's connected to the symmetry. I can also adjust the values using these sliders on this B page here. And yet, because these matrix sequences overlap, adjusting one dial might affect, I don't know, 3 different sequences at once. So yeah, these sequences are currently all locked together moving at the same time, but each sequence actually has its own playhead. So we can set them to different lengths and get them to overlap in interesting ways. And like I said before, the movement of the sequences, the movement of the matrix sequences corresponds to the movement of the grid channel. So I set this to move back palindromically, then the matrix sequence is going to do the same. Again, this is just a way of kind of having these different modulation lanes overlap and give you kind of unpredictable results. There's also been a couple of improvements to the sampler. So I'm going to load up a sample into the sampler here. So on channel 1, I've loaded a sample in from the Strokes factory sample pack. We're playing the same sequence as before. Now if I go over to the B page, we've got these 2 new sound parameters, bit reduction and sampler reduction. And yeah, just like any other sound parameter, these are modulatable. Also in this update, we can modulate the start and end points. Now if you remember from the last video, we can set the start by dragging the top half of the waveform, and the end by the bottom half of the waveform. This corresponds to the start and end here. You maybe remember from the sampler video that when the end is before the start, the sample plays backwards. And yeah, these have their own modulation lanes as well. So let's see what happens here. So you can hear that like the start point of the sample's being changed, the end point's being changed. Sometimes it plays backwards, sometimes it plays forwards. Yeah, you can get some kind of interesting movement from putting chords in. Alternatively, you can throw breakbeats in and start chopping them up. That works pretty well as well. I'm going to just throw some other sounds in and start messing around and see what happens. So yeah, besides that chord sound, everything that you hear in here is from those internal oscillators. Also, everything that's been happening so far is contained inside of one pattern. A pattern is a device-wide snapshot of all the sound parameters and all the sequencing parameters. What that means is that I can switch over to B, and our pattern has been duplicated from A to B. And now with this channel, I can adjust all the sound parameters, all the sequencing parameters, and see what we get. In fact, I can even change these voices to be different synth engines. And then with one press, I can snap back to that pattern from before. So yeah, one last thing to mention on this update is that the modulation system in Strokes has had a reworking from the ground up, so it's now fully modular. Any modulation source can be connected to any sound parameter, and you do that by using these drop downs here. Here we can select any of the matrix channels, any of the waves channels, or the velocity. There's a really great group of beta testers that have been helping me out with this. They've been suggesting things like LFOs, modulators and things like that. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with Strokes, join the Discord below and sign up to be a beta tester. You'll get builds like before they come out. Strokes is available now on iPad as a standalone application and as an AUV3. It's available on Mac and Windows as a VST and audio unit. And you can run it in Logic as a MIDI effects as well. Oh yeah, one final thing about the MIDI. So while this internal voice stuff's going on, the MIDI sequence is still running at the back of it. That means that you can connect your own drum machines, your own hardware. You can bypass these voices if you want, or use a couple of internal voices and a couple of your own voices. So yeah, plenty to dive into. You can incorporate it into your existing setup already, or just start fresh tracks out straight out of this. And yeah, so that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Thanks again to all those beta testers for helping me out with this. Hope you get a chance to check it out. Cheers.